Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever scroll through social media and get frustrated by how angry and mean political discussions can be? Well, this new study explores why people actually get so toxic online and what they think they're actually doing. It turns out some people don't see themselves as trolls at all, but as active participants in politics. Let's dive in. So the big question here is, why do people act so toxic online, especially when talking about politics? We see it everywhere, right? Facebook comments, Twitter feeds, it can get really nasty and it makes us want to tune out. But this study wanted to understand the people who are actually doing the being toxic. What is their side of the story? Basically, researchers talked to people who were being toxic in political chats on Facebook and Twitter. Instead of just saying, oh, they're trolls, they found that many of these folks actually believe their toxic behavior is a form of political participation. They came up with three main reasons why people do this. Some are just venting their frustrations. Others are trying to find the truth through blunt talk, and some are trying to convince or rally other people. This is a big deal because it suggests toxic speech isn't always just random meanness. It's sometimes a deliberate, if aggressive, way to get involved in politics. You know, in Denmark, where this study was done, almost everyone uses social media, and a huge number of people report seeing hateful stuff online. This toxicity actually makes people withdraw from political discussions, which is a big problem for democracy. So understanding why it happens is super important. The problem is most research looks at what causes toxicity from the outside, like personality traits or how social media works. But we don't hear much from the people who are being toxic themselves. And most studies have looked at news sites or smaller online groups, not the everyday platforms where most of us hang out like Facebook. This study digs deeper by interviewing 25 people who admitted to being toxic in political talks online. They wanted to hear their stories and how they explained their own actions. And guess what? They found a lot of people saw their toxicity as a way to participate in politics. They identified three main paths to this behavior. The venter who just wants to let off steam, the collider who wants to debate and find truth, even if it gets heated, and the megaphone who wants to persuade others and gain influence. So the study found that participants didn't see themselves as disrupting discussions, but as participating in them. They were talking about issues they deeply cared about. One person said they care about freedom of speech and the truth, and that you should be able to express yourself within legal limits. Another person described feeling a strong emotional reaction when seeing a politician they disagreed with and needing to get their thoughts off their chest. You know, you see a politician you really dislike and you just have to say something. This shows they weren't just randomly being mean, they felt they were making a political point. When asked if they regretted their toxic comments, most people said no. They stood by what they wrote and felt it reflected their beliefs, even if they might have phrased it differently sometimes. One person explained they never wrote anything online, they couldn't stand by or explain. This is fascinating because it challenges the idea that people just say nasty things online and don't mean it. They meant it and they felt it was justified, even if Facebook or another platform might have removed it. So the core idea emerging here is that political frustration is a major driver of online toxicity. People are reacting to issues they care about or politicians they dislike. They justify their toxic language by saying they are highlighting serious problems. From their perspective, it's political participation, not just trolling. Now let's break down those three types of justifications the study found. First, we have the venter. These are people who use social media as an outlet for their political frustrations. They might be angry about politicians, news stories, or opinions they disagree with, and they need to let off steam. Their partner might not want to listen, so they put it on Facebook. So for venters, social media is a place to relieve emotional pressure. Next up are the colliders. These individuals want to debate and find the truth, but they end up clashing with people who have different views. They believe in prioritizing facts over politeness. Colliders see themselves as sharing facts and knowledge. They might get into heated discussions because they are presenting information that challenges others' perceptions. When someone challenges their view of reality based on media, they might feel cornered and lose face. Ironically, this pursuit of facts can lead to conflict and toxicity. They get frustrated when people focus on winning an argument rather than clarifying the truth. So colliders are driven by a desire for accuracy, but their bluntness can cause collisions. Finally, we have the megaphones. These are people who use social media to persuade and influence others, often quite aggressively. They have strong political beliefs and opinions, and their goal is to get their message out and encourage action or change minds. Megaphones are like political broadcasters using social media to spread their views and try to shape political outcomes. They want to wake people up to what they see as important issues. So what does all this mean? The study highlights that people who engage in toxic speech in political discussions on social media often see themselves as participating in politics. They are not just random trolls. The three types, venters, colliders, and megaphones, show different motivations for this participation: venters for relief, colliders for truth, and megaphones for influence. This is important because it challenges the common assumption that these individuals are simply trying to disrupt conversations. This research helps us understand the varied functions social media serves for people with different political motivations. For venters, it offers a way to let off steam; for colliders, a platform to debate; and for megaphones, a tool to spread their message. Unlike previous studies that focused more on online news sites or fringe groups, this work looks at mainstream platforms, where most of us experience toxicity. This confirms that the idea of a single typical troll might be too simplistic. The findings also stress the need for interventions to be tailored to the underlying motivations. For example, trying to fact-check someone who is primarily venting their frustration might not be as effective as addressing their emotional need. Similarly, persuading megaphones might require different strategies than convincing colliders. Now, no study is perfect. This one interviewed only 25 people, so it doesn't represent everyone who is toxic online. Also, the study focused on individual users and didn't look at organized groups, bots, or AI, which also contribute to online hostility. This research relies on what people say they are doing and justifying, so there is always a chance of self-rationalization. However, the author argues that understanding these personal narratives is crucial for figuring out how to actually deal with online toxicity. There is still a lot to learn about how to identify these different types of toxic speakers and then how to best approach them. I think this research is super valuable because it shifts our perspective. Instead of just labeling people as trolls, we start to see them as individuals with political motivations, however misguided or aggressively expressed. The venter-collider megaphone categories are a helpful way to think about why online anger spills over. It makes sense that if someone's just frustrated, they need an outlet. If someone genuinely thinks they have facts and the other side is wrong, they're going to argue hard. And if someone feels a strong political call to action, they're going to try and rally people. The biggest takeaway for me is that we can't treat all online toxicity the same way. If we want to make social media more civil, we need to understand why people are being toxic. Are they seeking relief? Are they seeking truth? Are they seeking influence? Each of these needs a different approach. For example, instead of just banning someone, maybe a venter needs some kind of emotional support or a way to express frustration constructively. A collider might benefit from better moderation that encourages factual debate rather than personal attacks. And a megaphone might be better countered with diverse voices and evidence that challenges their agenda. This study opens the door for more targeted interventions. Imagine if platforms could identify users' primary motivations and then offer relevant resources or moderation strategies. That would be a huge step. Future research could definitely explore how to reliably identify these different types of toxic speakers, maybe through their posting patterns or engagement styles. And of course, they'll need to test out these tailored intervention strategies to see which ones actually work. Thanks for joining me on RUBIN'S Mind Lab. If you found this interesting, please give it a like, comment below with your thoughts on online toxicity, and subscribe for more science breakdowns. See you next time.